does all these organisms require? There are they're actually the most important requirement for all organism is energy. And because energy is not just required for a cell to grow, but also to organize different kinds of reactions, different activities within the cell. Where does this energy come from? The energy is really coming from the nutrients that the organism is depending on. So whether it's consuming it directly or whether it's taking it from the environment, certain nutrients are required for growth and survival. Now there are two kinds of organisms: those that can produce their own food and those that depend on the other. For example, the first one are the producers. When we say the producers, then these are going to be your plants, or certain bacteria will also be considered as producers because they can manufacture their own food. They take the input from the sun, they take carbon dioxide, or some of them can take methane and they can survive and they can make their own raw materials. Consumers are on the other hand usually animals, because the consumers will depend on the producers to then form or then gain the energy. So this is a matter of continuous flow of energy. Okay, so organisms definitely respond to change. There are various receptors present that will stimulate cells within a certain region, and stimulation can be taken into account even for something like a bacterial cell has certain receptors on its cell membrane and cell walls, and it can respond to stimulus. For certain bacteria, they have, for example, if I draw a bacterial cell over here, let's say this is a pneumonia bacteria, it actually has a thick coating outside which is called as the cell cap or the wall, and it prevents the bacteria from write down the name of this bacteria, that it will help the bacteria to survive, because it will help it not to respond to certain stimulation on the outside. And this could be even such as a drastic effect of the pH, either very high or very low. Now certain cells if cells are continuously, let's put it this way, responding to certain stimulus, then it will be very hard for a cell to survive. Now, within our internal chemistry, we do have a mechanism which is called as homeostasis, which means that we respond to certain conditions through a range. So homeostasis would be how to respond to a stimulus so that it does not drastically destroy the cell. And we will also explore these in the subsequent chapters. Okay, let's go on to the next slide. Pretty much you have seen so far that I have been focusing on organization of the living cell, and it's a must. Organization is basically present in the genetic code. The genetic code is present in what is called as the DNA. DNA stands for deoxyribose nucleic acid. This is the genetic code. This is the code of life, and this has all the information on what an organism should be, what kind of reactions the organism is going to undergo, what is the organism's outside appearance, and what kind of even diseases that they carry will be stored in their DNA. And of course you can pretty much see that the DNA is inherited from the parents to offspring, so it's inherited code of life that is coming from the parents. Development is another term. Development means that how a cell arises to an adult. For example, I can give you a good example on this one. For example, if you have eggs of a creature, and this creature eventually turns into a butterfly, you can see that it has gone through various stages of development. It first formed the larva. From the larva, we had a stage that is called as a pupa stage, and then into a butterfly. So a development is a series of processes or stages that the cell undergoes to form an adult organism. So looking at all this unity among, looking at all this organization among the species, then gives us a whole new dimension of how to understand these or group these organisms together. And these are grouped through a system that is called as a classification system. A classification system is pretty much organizing species in very exclusive groups. And the latest concept is about the domain, and I will get into it in a little while. Each organism is considered to have a species name. A species name has two parts. It's got the first part and the second part. The first part is usually the genus name, and then you have the species name. For example, we humans are called as the Homo sapiens, where Homo would be the genus name and sapiens would be the species name. A tomato plant is called as Lycopersicum esculentum. Let's get the right spelling done. A really long name instead of calling it a tomato. Again, it has two parts. The first part is the genus name and the second part is the species name. Just three major domains. The first domain is called as the bacterial domain. And they usually consist of all single cell, and these single cell are all prokaryotes, and we'll spend a good amount of time as to what prokaryotes are. Just to give you an example right now, a prokaryote is going to be a cell that has no true structures inside. So a eukaryote, for example, cells of these are called as the eukaryotes, and they have a nucleus inside, they have a mitochondria. Plant cell may even have a chloroplast. So all these membrane-bound structures that are present inside are eukaryotes. Prokaryote would be a cell that does not have membrane-bound structures. So bacteria and the archaea are the two domains that are still being studied, especially for division within the kingdom division within these two domains, and we'll spend a good amount of time at the end of the semester going through all of these. Archaea are the most primitive creatures. These are present in, for example, in sulfur springs, in very deep very deep oceans, hot springs, and these are the most primitive kind of organisms. Archaeas are the prokaryotes, and these will be the bacterial kingdom. And the last domain is called as the eukaryote. Oops, sorry, this should not have been arising. I needed a pen over here. The eukaryotes, and the eukaryotes are the ones that have lots of structures within the cell. So if you can think of a cell as a house, a prokaryote would have one large house with no differentiation between a kitchen and a bedroom or a living room. On the eukaryotes will be organization of different compartmentalization within the cell, and that's what a eukaryote is. Eukaryotes are divided into different kingdoms, and some of them I've named over here. Protist are the simplest ones. For example, an image of this is over here, a euglena or a chlamydomonas. Actually, this looks like a euglena, yeah, or a paramecium. Plants would be something that are green. Fungi would be your mushrooms, and plants would be your kingdom that you already know. An animal kingdom would be the ones that will have all the animals, whether they're birds and reptiles and mammals and so forth. So remember, there are three main domains. The first two, bacteria and the archaea, the kingdoms are not yet studied, so we don't know all the kingdoms within that. They are still researching to put them into different kingdoms.